If you've ever practiced a groove for hours and come back the next day and it's completely sloppy again, you've experienced a difference between performance and learning. And we're going to get into today why that really matters so you can make the best progress with your playing every time you sit down at the kit to practice. The biggest lie told in the drum community is that just doing more of something gets you to where you want to be. It happens again and again in podcasts, interviews with drummers, where so many drummers put their progress down to just putting in more and more hours. Whilst I do not deny the fact that you have to put in the time on the drum kit, it's not the most important factor in making progress. Time on the drums matters, but how you structure that time matters far more. Imagine you're about to set off on a journey to a new restaurant that you've never been to before. You get out your favourite Maps app, you put in the destination, and you start making your way there. You absentmindedly drive, you don't take notice of any of the landmarks, the turnings, the buildings on the way, but you achieve your goal because you arrive there in the time that you wanted to. This is a perfect example of performance. The short-term aspect of it did work, and in time you'd achieved what you wanted to. But for learning to take place, we need a long-term change in memory. Performance is doing the thing correctly in that moment. So like an actual performance, you can watch someone doing that thing in time, but learning takes place over time. So you have to keep coming back to the performance with less and less support and structure so that you can check that you can do it totally independently. There are loads of ways of doing this and making sure that the learning happens. You haven't just learned something once to never be able to use again. But first we're going to look at how to practice less and learn more. Imagine you dream of growing your own houseplant. You get the seeds, you get the soil, you put it all in place, and then you come to water it. Now learning is like watering that plant. You can't go and add in tons and tons and tons of water straight away and drown the plant and never come back to it. That's like performing and practicing for hours once, but never coming back to the idea again. For that house plant to grow and for your learning to happen, you have to water it sometimes every day, maybe over different days. It depends what the thing is that you're learning or the type of plant is that you're growing. The great thing about learning is that actually leaving bigger and bigger gaps between each practice session or watering session is even more beneficial. If you look at this research from Ebbinghaus, you can see that how quickly we forget information after visiting it. If you revisit it the first day after, the fourth day after, the sixth day, and then the eighth day after, you can see how the forgetting actually shallows out. So you forget less when you repeat it, but you don't have to come back to it every single day. This is so important for us who have busy lives because we can actually really know we're going to learn something in the most efficient way, but not having to dedicate every single day to it. And even better, if you have more time, you can add in different things to practice so that you can still use that spacing, but practice things in the gap. So you start to layer the things that you're learning. So as we're learning these things and not just performing them, how do we actually know that we've learned something? If you go back to a time where you spent revising for something or you had a last-minute test, you may have done things like rereading notes, rewriting notes or highlighting things, only to come to the exam and maybe remember some of it, but for the next day forget it all. So to get at least 2 times or even more out of what you're learning, you need to know that testing yourself is the thing that really matters. Rather than rereading notes or just replaying the same patterns with the same music in front of you or the same music playing in your ears, you need to test yourself. And one of the most beneficial ways of doing that is a flashcard. So you could take what you're learning, it could be a groove or a fill, and you could write out that fill on one side of it in whatever way helps you remember it. And on the other side, you just write out the concept. Then take those cards and in those intervals we discussed earlier from that Ebbinghaus curve, you start to test yourself. This way you can see whether you've actually learnt the thing or you need to practice it again. So we're going between practicing and checking we're learning. And testing is the #1 thing that allows you to know that. So now you know the intervals to practice and actually how to know that you've learnt something. How do you make sure that you're always making progress towards your goal? Make sure we don't hit a plateau with our playing and that we don't start resting on the things that we always like playing, so you still keep moving progress. Then we need to add in something called desirable difficulties. These are the little things that make it a little bit difficult every time you play something. Being in that zone where you're not quite 100% about something is actually where learning happens. You don't want to be able to play it completely, and you don't want to be in a place where you can't play it at all. But that middle part in between allows you to stretch what you're doing. This could be something like adding in a gap click, so you have to practice without a metronome. This could also be something like adding in extra coordination or a left foot into a groove you usually play to start to challenge your ability to keep that groove going whilst adding in other elements. Continually stretching your favorite things and adding difficulties to them keeps that learning happening and your progress happening as well. Now, putting all this together in one go straight away might sound like a lot of work. So I've built something called learntospeakdrum.com. Within that, there's a groove lab, and this gives you exactly what you need to practice at the right time. There is the spacing added into the app, there is the desirable difficulties, and there is a way of knowing exactly where you need to be at which point of your playing without you ever having to practice it. So if you want to take a drum quiz to find out where the weakness is in your groove, so you know exactly what to practice next, and then you want to start practicing with all of these optimized ways of learning put straight in, head to learntospeakdrum.com and then do the drum quiz. There's a link below and you can start learning more efficiently straight away. If you're interested in the 3 things which are killing your groove, then watch this video next.